right, so when we think about the general exponential function, we think about a times our base b raised to the x minus c power plus d. Again, same restrictions on my base. Ooh, this should say with base capital B. And we've got our c is a horizontal shift, so left and right. D is my vertical shift up and down. A is my vertical stretch. My base is still growth or decay, but notice that we didn't put in a b value. Well, let's think about why we didn't put in the b value. If I had something like 2 to the 2x, well, that's the same as 2 squared to the x, which is the same as 4 to the x. So, and like we saw in the last example, if I had 2 to the negative x, that's the same as 2 to the negative 1 to the x, which is the same as 1/2 to the x. So really this b value is changing the base, and I don't need to think about it as a horizontal stretch. Instead, I can just think of a different parent function with a different base value. So let's look at what happens here if I've got 2 to the x. So 2 to the x is shown. This is going to shift my graph up 3. This one shifts my graph left 3. This one reflects across the y-axis. And this one reflects across the x-axis. So notice negative 2 to the x is different than negative 2 to the x. This is not an exponential function, so those two are not equal. This one is an exponential function. It's the same as negative 1 times 2 to the x. So I'm going to leave these for you to sketch. You can test them in your calculator, but here's what you're doing. I will, however, say that when we move it up 3, I want to make sure and move my asymptote up 3 as well. So I was at y equals 0, and now my asymptote will be y equals 3. And I'll just go ahead and sketch this one. So all of my points are going to go up 3. So my y-intercept goes from 1 to 4. This point was 1, 2. It's going to go up to be 1, 5. At 2, I would have the value 4, but now I'm going to move it up to 7, and so on and so forth. So same shape, just moved up 3. So that's 2x plus 3. Okay, now I'll leave those to you. Make sure you put them in your calculator or on Desmos to check your answers.